Oh, you got a notification on Xbox that I'm broadcasting?
All right. Hey, now that's better. Oh, and
Cool. I didn't know that did that.
It's not the strongest stuff, but more protection than what you.
I mean, it makes sense since I'm broadcasting on Mixer as well. So.
Ah, there you go. A bit sturdier. Every little bit counts out there.
Okay.
It's true. We don't have much, but you did right by us. Best we do right by you. If you need any weapon upgrades in the future, come see me. McCabe over there will help you out with the augments for your gear. But
I don't know, maybe that's something you have to opt in for.
Talk. You know, she's not much for chat beyond her work.
So you're the stray Ford was talking about. We got plenty of mouths to feed without taking in random drifters. Apparently taking out a few root is enough for our commander, though. Ford's gonna give him... I'm McCabe. I'm the engineer. And you're a pain in my ass. I'm not some scrap peddler, got it? I don't upgrade trash. Alright then. Let's see what we're dealing with here.
Right.
You're looking to lay down some serious
Yeah,
hurt.
I mean, whatever. I mean,
use this to burn those weeds.
You don't owe me anything, but I do appreciate you stopping.
Get me more components and I'll
Yeah,
make
I mean,
more.
something.
For a fee. Now get out of here. I'm tired of your yapping. Yeah.
Yes. You're so much further up the ladder. Right. Which, I mean, I appreciate. I wish everybody realized it was that simple.
It's been a while since I was in a fight like that.
And, I mean... Right. Right. Yeah, and I wish that we had more support from other people, but I don't know, I guess they just don't. Streaming's not really their thing, I guess, so they don't really even think about it.
It's been a while since I was in a fight like that.
Just like I haven't been on Elder Scrolls and joined John's guild, just because I don't really play enough, so I just forget about it all the time.
Done well, friend. Done well, friend.
Right. Well, yeah. Oh, it's because he probably is like, oh, well, like we're guild mates, so like they should help me out. Just like he would help them out if they asked, but
Good to
I
see
mean, like
you
they don't
more
need his
equipped.
help. They would just rather
Riggs
have
and
the money
McCabe
or
do good
whatever.
work. I hope this will be enough to get you on your way. We can't leave by the gates now. He said we should... Well, considering you stuck your neck out, there's a terminal. With any luck, we can get the thing... Well, here's hoping it doesn't.
Okay. An officer. Oh, he's not even given materials for it. Ah, that's no good.
Really something, isn't it? I'd read about it, but I never saw it working.
But you gotta provide your own maps.
This red eye might be... You want to get out of here? This is your shot. My grandfather, he brought everyone to work. He was determined to learn where the root came from. He spent so much time out there.
Right,
Searching.
just so they, I mean, it's not like, it's not a handout. I mean, it's
He knew the
helping
outside
somebody.
world.
And
There's a room just outside the ward. All his notes, any hint of where he went, it's there. If you want to reach the atoll, he may be the last one who knew how to get there. Listen,
yeah,
I know this has all been a bit rough for you. Been rough for everyone. But you came through for us.
yeah.
For that, I'm grateful.
Better hope it's not John.
You're welcome back anytime. Good luck.
Yeah, nah, it probably isn't. You didn't put on Facebook or anything that... You know what, I should watch you. Yeah, no, because I mean, he's a good dude. Like John is a very good dude, so I don't think it would something that he is doing intentionally at all. So yeah, I just put your stream on. I should have been in here earlier. Yeah, so now supporting you, trying to support you like you support me. You know what I mean? All right, so now my session is joinable, so I'm ready to meet up whenever you are. Okay. I think they want you to go back to the captain, your Commander Ford, that lady on the top of the catwalk thing. The boss bitch.
Hey there, friend. Name's Reginald. If you're looking for a fix to what? Boys? Oh, don't sell short, friend. Man, it's good to see a new face again. Easy, give it kind. But hey, you're the hero of the ward.
I would. You should be fine with whatever you have. at least to get through a little bit to go earn some stuff. I upgraded my that's the thing. Like I upgraded my pistol because I know that that's what I'm going to use most. Wait, what? Where's this fucking sound coming from? Okay. Oh, right bumper activates the weapon mod? Because I was trying that and it wasn't working for me earlier. I don't know. Maybe my right bumper's messed up on that controller. One thing that I don't think it necessarily matters because I think you can just pull out whatever gun it's on and use it, I think. Again, I'm not really sure. I couldn't get them to use. But one thing that I did learn, there are these, they're like a step above grunts. They're not like bosses, but they're like captains or whatever. I don't know. And they shoot like, it looks like a bow and arrow, but they shoot like pieces of themselves or whatever. Like demon energy, and that makes you bleed. So I didn't have bandages my first time out, and I like used all my heals to stop myself from bleeding to death. And I still like, after using all my heals, I still like was pretty low on health. So I recommend that you buy bandages from the guy Reggie. You had to talk before we go out to the world. Like I'm buying, just sometime before we go out. Now I'm buying, I'm gonna buy 3, but I don't know if I can share them or not.
Take care, friend.
And there was plenty of loot out there and plenty of ammo too. I was very conservative about my ammo in the beginning, and then like I kept finding ammo, and I was like almost was never less than full. Like right. Yeah, the couple minutes I played, like it was rare if I like even got down to like half ammo, because I would just like find it. Almost every guy that I killed would drop something. Actually, I can look at your stream. So it's the reactor. You turned that on already, right? Okay, yeah. So yeah, that's what you got to do. And then once you're done that, you got to press the computer button and do that. Then you're gonna have to go back and talk to the captain, I think. Sure is. Sure is a glowing rock.
Good to see you.
We did some good down at the reactor. Told them I couldn't have done it alone. And that's true. I'm only sorry. We're both gone now. But hey, if you find good scrounge out in the world, bring it by, yeah?
Yeah, it should say, yeah.
Later. How's it going?
Yeah.
Take care then.
Now, okay, so now,
Need
if
any
you're looking at
scrounge?
the stone, and go out that room to the left, that's where the people are that you can, buy the bandages. That guy right there on your right, that guy. Yeah, and I would make sure you have at least one, because if you get hit by the, you only have to get hit by one of the arrows to start bleeding, and it sucks.
Needing any scrounge? Take care then.
Come on,
How's
I
it going?
don't want to talk to you. Yeah, bandages. Yeah, bandages. Yeah, two should be fine. It just would suck. Yeah, that's like a potion. Yeah, it can't hurt. I bought one. Oh, I didn't even.
Greetings, friend.
Yeah,
What can I do you for?
and that's the only way to do it. So if you're bleeding out in the field, there's no way to stop it.
Keep your head up. Hold there.
Yeah, that you use that for like upgrades and stuff. I didn't know that in the beginning. It's not really a big deal. You find plenty of iron, or at least I have in the world. So I actually sold a bunch of iron to her before I knew that I needed it, and but then I didn't have to buy it back or anything. Like I found enough.
Good to see you again. Let's see what I've got.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. Oh, you can buy the armor too. So you can... Okay. So you can make them look however you want. Okay. Yeah, I like that.
Take care, my friend. Anything you need? What do you need?
That's, yeah, when you put a mod on it, it adds that thing on the bottom. Yeah. So, I think I'm gonna upgrade my... Actually, I don't know what I'm gonna upgrade.
So
I
long.
upgraded my one thing, and I'm gonna leave it until I see what I actually use on this character. If I wind up using a pistol, or if I wind up using... whatever. So, I'm at the crystal. I don't know how we join each other. Yeah, and then you hit X on it. And then, let's see, world settings. You get, you find, like, to, like, level that stuff up, you find, like, these books in the world, and then they give you trait points that you can add. How do we join each other? Let's see. Yep, looks like I'm going into something. Okay, so I guess I can run around this area with you. I don't know, I'm loading in. We'll see. I thought we were just meeting in the world, but... Yeah. Oh, yeah. I see you, but you're just standing still on my screen. Oh, now you're moving. Yay. All right. Yeah, you use the crystal. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Nice. Okay. Okay. Okay, game. I see you, game. Alright, here we go. This is what we waited for. Alright, now there's stuff on this table. You go ahead and pick it up and see if it goes away or... Yeah, okay. Yeah, so it looks like the loot is limited. I guess, I don't know. You know what? I did notice that with the enemies when they hit each other. One of the bosses actually killed one of the little guys because he shot him in the back. Yes. Okay. Good to know. Good to know. Yeah. Oh, they're throwing stuff outside. Okay. Well, I think the big guns... Well, actually, I don't know, because my gun, like, has... I used a couple shots. I have 3 bandages, so go ahead. I fired a couple shots from my shotgun, but I have 7 in the clip and 16 extra. With the rifle that I had, with the Hunter, I think I could carry, I forget how many went in the clip, but I could have like 36 extras. So you don't carry as much of that as you do with your pistol. Oh, we got steps. We just gotta be careful about the melee so we don't shoot each other, but melee, it's pretty... Yeah, not good, you can take it. This is your game that I joined, so you grab all this stuff and then we'll have to run through on mine at some point. If I keep this character and give me, then I'll grab that stuff. But what are you saying if I'm gonna play as the Scrapper? Okay. And what I like about this is procedurally generated, so this is actually looks different than it did when I played through. So like I actually don't know where I'm going. Oh, we got a big guy down there. Yeah, I think it's... Oh, okay. I didn't realize there was anywhere else to go. Oh, we got guys up here. One down. Yeah, it does a lot of damage. When I was just looking, I think it does like 136 damage or something. When I was looking at the guns I could buy, the coach gun did the most damage out of all of them. At 112. Yeah, that's the big guy that I saw. Oh, behind you. Oh, you can also change the shoulder you're looking over. Like in the Division. If you push in the left joystick when you're aiming down sights. Yeah. Oh shit. Oh, somebody's throwing shit at me. Oh, yeah. That was tough. That was tough. Yeah. Now the left bumper is, which we didn't use, or I didn't use at all, is your dragon heart or whatever. You get 3 charges on it and you can heal, and then that replenishes when you die or go to a checklist. Yeah. Should be a left bumper. We'll activate it. I don't know. It actually, on my thing, it shows your 3+ signs under your name on the bottom right part of the screen. So maybe that's your. Oh, maybe that's how many times you can be revived. Like, if I go down without you going down, you can get me up 3 times before I'm. Oh, really? Okay, yeah, me neither. I thought maybe that was your ability, so I would know if, like, your ability was on cooldown or whatever.
They see us!
Yeah, so I have no idea. There's scrap on top of this car. Okay. Yeah, I guess your ammo is full. Like I'm so now that I'm full, I can carry. I have 7 shots in my gun, and 21 extra shots. Okay. Oh wait, I thought this was the building that we went in last time, but I guess not. Must have, because this doesn't look familiar to me. Oh, there's something green in here. There's a potion over here. We got enemies. Nice. Very well done. Yeah, that was nice. Looks like we practiced that. I lure him in and then I dodge out of the way and you shoot his kneecaps off. So we gotta go up the stairs. Oh. Oh, he's right here. I'm like, I hear something, but I couldn't. No kneecaps for you, bitch. All right. So, you want to try to use your ability and see if you can heal us up this little bit of health? Oh, okay. So I guess that's why. So how do you just from killing things, or do you have to use that gun in particular, or? Oh. So then it matters what gun it's on. Okay, yeah, there's that. Which way do we... Okay, I kind of remember that bridge a little bit. Okay, I remember these broken steps. So I guess down... We probably have to get back out to the street so we can keep on. Oh, shit. Oh, wow, you can vault over that. Oh, girl. Yeah, I figured, I made a guy my first one. I'd make a chick for this one. I'm like stuck. What?
Come here, dude. I'm gonna love you.
Oh, I hear some dude talking. What? our shotguns are making short work of this dude. Nice. Oh, more. Oh, nice. Nice. Okay. Very nice. All right, I like it. Yep, okay. Okay. Yeah. It's kind of important. There's a guy in this room to the right I just saw walk in there. What? Oh, there he is. Oh. Yeah, this shotgun is like almost unfair. Like, it was so much more difficult the first time. Like, one, it was like a rifle, so I had to be more precise with my shots. But it also did like, I think 50 damage per shot or something. And this is just like kicking the shit out of them. Well, I am gonna need ammo for it. So next long gun ammo. Yeah. Yeah, that's done, you think? Okay, yeah, I have 4 in my gun and that's it. So, but I have plenty of repeaters, so I'll be okay. I just... Okay. Just, I should have been saving the shotgun. Oh, yeah. My bad, I walked right in front of your bullets. Oh, there they are. Long gun. Nice. But that was only 5 bullets. Jeez. I can hold 20... Oh, okay, 28 on my shotgun and 104 on the repeater. Yeah, the repeater does 18.7 and the shotgun does 130. Okay. Oh. Yeah, it takes a little bit to swing it. I might be switching to the sword. I did like the way the sword played. Very quick and agile, but it only did... The hammer does 52 damage. The sword, I think, did... After I upgraded a bunch, I think it did like 30 something. Yeah, I like the way that looks. It looks like a circular saw blade attached to a pole or something. It's pretty gnarly looking. And this has like a power attack I can charge up, which I didn't notice if my sword did. I hear more up. What's in this little office? Oh, a box. Oh, big stuff. Yeah, that's all you. Yeah, it probably would be pretty decent. I mean, it's a bit easy, actually. There's some, like, a couple fights we had trouble with, but for the most part, it's... Right, yeah, I did see that. Yeah, and some guys are tough. Like that guy with the two swords who blocks all your shots, like, he's a fucking pain in the ass. Oh, shit, here's one of those guys with the bow and arrow thing I was talking about. Yeah, let me That didn't take as long as I thought it would. Oh, watch out behind you. Down there. Oh, there you go. Oh, wait a minute. When you just picked that up, I think I just got that too. That Luminex crystal or whatever, that showed up on the bottom left. So I guess we're sharing loot. That's good. That's... Yes, I did. Yep. Okay, so nice. That's like yeah, that's like the money in Borderlands. It doesn't matter who picks it up. Both people get it. So ammo's not shared, but the money and stuff is. That's really cool. Okay. Yeah. And then here, grab this scrap, and I'll see if I get scrap. Yep, 18 scrap. Nice. Yeah, that really changes a lot. Like, I wasn't really worried about it, but it was just like, well, I'm just gonna have to like get loot when I play through on mine or whatever. Yeah, actually, I'm gonna use that trade point. Oh, I have 2 of them. I'm gonna level up endurance, I think, because my endurance is only at 1. And my vigor is at 5. Okay. When we die or get sit down at a checkpoint, it will. Yeah, you get 3 charges of it, but then you have to regenerate, or yeah, regenerate it. Yep, blood ward, scrap, and something else. Sorry, I'm a bit distracted at the moment. There is a guy who I'm not a big fan of because he lies and tries to manipulate shit and whatever. And he acts, his famous thing is he acts like he's upset, like he does what me and Grim call the injured bird routine, where he acts like, oh, like I'm all sad and blah blah blah, like tries to get like chicks to feel bad for him. Yeah, yep, exactly. And he does it strictly for the attention. And he also he makes shit up about stuff all the time. Just because he wants people to like talk. Like a couple weeks ago, he posted a live video at like 3 a.m. in the morning and titled it pre-Parkinson's diagnosis. Oh shit. Did you take damage when you fell? Okay. So he titled it pre-Parkinson's diagnosis. So it's like, what the fuck? So everybody's all concerned about him. And the video, he's like, yeah, so I was up since 8 a.m. I had a doctor's appointment I went to because my hand won't stop shaking. So like I got, doctor looked at it, ran tests. He's like, it's now 3 a.m. and I can't sleep because it's shaking and whatever. So I text Grim like, yeah, like what the fuck is he talking about with this shit? Oh yeah, what up, Mr. Grim? I'm actually talking about your buddy and his pre-Parkinson's diagnosis video. So I talked to Grim. Grim's like, yeah, it's actually, he went to the doctors for something else completely unrelated to that. He's just making it up. I don't know, I'm going down these steps. But yeah, so his new lie is he posted 2 pictures on Facebook. What? Okay. No, you only have 2 pluses. So as a team, we only have 3 together, I guess. Okay. Alright, good to know. So his, yeah. So that was one thing that he put a couple weeks ago. His new, he just posted on Facebook like 2 hours ago. 2 posts. One was a picture of him holding a bunch of lottery tickets, and behind it said, "Congratulations, person's name, $300." Yeah, we did. And then the other picture was a picture of a lottery ticket scratched off that was winning $250,000. And everybody's like on the $250,000 one, like, oh, congratulations, oh yeah, man, you have such good luck, oh, you won, you're gonna share some of that, oh, it's so great, congratulations, like, be smart with it, invest it. And then like I look at it and I'm like, what? So I comment on the one that has the ticket for $250,000 and comment about the other picture where he's standing in front of a sign that says he won $300. So I asked him, like, wait, why does that say you won $300 and this ticket looked like you won $250,000? And then he responds, because whenever he's congratulating him, he's not denying it, like that he didn't win. He's not saying he definitely won. He's just like, yeah, I got the ticket here, whatever. Like, he's not talking like he's so excited about what he's gonna get with the money. None of that. And yeah, so he just like did a Google search and found a lottery ticket for a whole lot of money, and nope, we got, yeah, no, just like posted it like it was him. We got baddies over here. So it wasn't him. You didn't see him in the picture. All you saw was fingers holding the ticket. So just a close-up of the ticket and somebody's fingers. And they don't look like his fingers. They look like the store owner's fingers or something. So, but he's just acting like it's his shit. And it's just like, it's so scummy. Like... yeah, like... yeah. And like, he does his other stuff. Like, he's got a decent job. He like works like at like one of the concert venues around here, and he like helps with setting it up and stuff. But he posts pictures of, like, one time he posted a picture where he was like behind like the DJ booth and was like, oh, I'm doing sound check, they're gonna let me do the work the sound or whatever. And another one was, he was like, yeah, I'm working the lights tonight, whatever, all this shit. And it's like, no, you're not. Like, and he tells Grim where he's like, yeah, no, I just post that stuff because it's funny. Like, everybody believes me and whatever. Yes. Yep. Yeah, like, and it's all just fucking make believe. Like, it hurts the shit out of me.
Who's next?
Yeah, I'm fucking beast. Beast mode. Yeah, I don't know where to go next, but... oh, here's a bridge. Yeah, I just saw he popped into Facebook stream. Piece of cake. Piece of cake. Yeah, I can't wait till we get to the dungeon part of it. Yeah, man, me too. Yeah. Jeez. Nice. No, the ammo I don't get. No. But I'm doing, actually I'm not, I do need ammo. I mean, I'm doing okay. I have like a total of 20 rounds in my repeater and 9 rounds in my shotgun. And I have this big ass hammer, so it's not the end of the world. But I just have to... Yeah, so I just have to be smart with my bullets, that's all. Oh yeah, they did drop a bunch of stuff. Yep, handgun ammo, yes. Nice. Okay, now I have a total of 79, so I'm good. So I don't know, this way looks like it's kind of grayed out on the map, so I guess we didn't explore this direction. Oh, there's a dungeon coming up. Now entering Fairview. Yep. Hopefully there's a checkpoint down there and that'll replenish. I think it replenishes your health. Definitely the Dragon Stone or Dragon Heart and your ammo. Black Tear. Advar hoped to protect the anointed against whatever lay beyond the gate. He did not do so because he's a sucker majucka. I'm going to use my Dragon Heart first before I use the checkpoint, because I'll definitely replenish that. Yeah, I'm not sure if health replenishes, but I know the Dragon Heart does. Okay, what's just more loot for us? Okay. Okay. Yeah, no. Okay, nice. Ooh, there's something purple. Something purple up here. A ring of evasion. Dad, you pick it up. I don't know if... Oh, yeah, I got one too. Nice. Oh, and it equipped it already. Yeah, it's pretty sweet. Oh, those big gross ones, they like explode. Oh my god. Run away.
Cover me!
Yeah, they were fucking me up too. That was insane. Alright, let me yeah. Let's get you up. Oh, okay, that cost Dragonheart to do that. So have to keep that in mind. Alright, so did he hit you with that? Are you bleeding now? It should say in the center of your screen. Yeah, so you gotta use it. Oh, you're about to go down. Oh, infected. Oh, that's a whole different thing. Okay.
On it!
There we go. Okay. You have... There's some... Well, I guess we share that stuff, so... Here, we can go back and rest at the checkpoint. Since that's right here. Yeah, but this time we'll be prepared for it. I was so unprepared for those little guys. Someone's... No, I don't think we need to. Yeah, I think we'll be. If it doesn't go that well this time, then we'll go back. Yeah, those little guys, they can be killed with one hit, with a melee hit. Oh, or like 2 pistol shots. Yeah. Yeah, piece of cake. Yeah, we were. Yeah, and I was like diving in front of you and stuff when you were shooting, so. Yes, definitely. Well, yeah, I get a little carried away. Oh. Holy shit. Okay. Oh shit, we gotta... There we go. Those big guys explode and give you rot and stuff. Oh. And walking into their cloud does the same. You got your heal? Can you heal us, or is that not active yet? Oh shit, oh shit. Oh damn, you fucked me up. Yeah, you heal and... Damn. Damn. Shit. Okay. Good to know. Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna try to stay crouched before you can shoot over my head. Yeah, it's just I'm not used to it. I don't know the last time I played a game that had it. So it's just yeah. No, I'm not mad about it. But like I wind up diving in front of you and stuff because I'm just worried about getting out of their way. And then oh, we got a big that was hectic, but we made it out of that. Now there's gonna be that big guy. Yeah, watch that mother. Good shit. Back down to 9 bullets. My big gun, my shotgun. Oh shit. Stay down. Yeah, I could use it.
Running low.
Yes. Thank you. Now I have I have 21 total. So I'm okay now. I wonder if we could do something to this thing in the middle. What is... Oh yeah, we can destroy... I don't know what that did. Oh, it brought this guy to life, I guess? My bad. Oh. Oh shit, I'm fucked up. Get out of here, go. Oh, he like appeared right on me. Fuck. Damn. Yeah, fucking for real. Can we... Okay. Yeah, definitely. upgrade the armors or something. Yeah, that was a bit insane. Yeah, where? Oh, that was this way.
Hey, traveler. Till next time. Needing any scrounge?
Greetings, friend.
Fuck,
Needing
man.
any scrounge?
I'm trying to pick up this.
Take
There
care
we go.
then.
I was trying to pick up that scrap
Need
on the
many
ground and I
scrounge?
couldn't because it just kept making me talk to her. It was such a pain in the ass. Yeah, I think I'm gonna change. I'm gonna buy a different melee weapon. This hammer just takes a bit too long to swing.
Oh, traveler.
I'm not in the mood for chat.
Oh yeah, I couldn't talk to that guy when you were talking to him. I don't know if that is a thing or that was just a glitch. Alright, so I can buy armor.
Yeah? Worth my time.
Oh no, I can upgrade armor. Okay, that's definitely what I want to do. I don't want to buy
Yeah,
armor.
good. Keep moving.
Okay, so if I buy the occultist hat or something,
What
hits
now?
generate additional mod power.
That'll be worth my time.
Okay, so what does my stuff do for me? Increased damage dealt with to all enemies within
We're done here?
5
Keep
meters.
moving.
Okay, so having any enemies that are within 5 meters, I do, because I have all 3 pieces, I do an extra 25% damage. Okay. So definitely gonna upgrade the armor. So you would recommend the scrap hatchet, or you think I should buy the sword? They both do about the same damage. The hatchet does 5 more damage, does 40 instead of 35. Okay. Yeah, I think it's pretty gnarly looking. I'll be done in 1 second. I see your guy dancing around. It was 450 scrap pieces or whatever. So, it was the same price for either one. If I upgrade... No, I guess I have to buy ammo boxes from that dude to, so I can have more ammo with me. I guess is what I need to do.
What now?
Oh, traveler.
All right then. Yeah, good. Now go.
Yeah, I upgraded my chest once, my helmet and boots twice. Where do I go?
So long.
Yeah, hopefully that'll keep me alive.
How can old Reggie help? Let's see what we got.
Nice. Yeah, shit, that, it's almost double on the, chest. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I'm gonna buy a box of ammo to replenish all of it if,
Keep your head up.
Later.
Good to see you.
okay.
Needing any scrap?
Okay.
Later.
Okay, so yeah, I see if I were to upgrade that, it would make it 16 meters. So it'd be another 3 feet. I don't know if the difference between 15 and 16 meters is worth wasting the one, well, not wasting, but worth using the one trade point I have. Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna do endurance right now. If I had more than one, if I had 2 or 3, I might do it. Because that would be a significant increase. But, alright, I am ready to rock and roll. I think. Yep. It's all good. In fact, I'm gonna run back to what's his name real quick. See if I have anything else I can afford to upgrade. I think 200 scrap left or 250 scrap left. Can I upgrade?
Oh, traveler. Certainly.
Oh, Gary Miller, what's up, buddy? What's going on, man? Welcome to the stream. We're doing a different game today, and I'll be back on later tonight streaming it again. Switch it up. Different, different speed. I don't know. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, Gary. I'm sorry. Yeah, he's yeah, I went to school with him. Yeah, he's been in. He's not as regular as you are, but he's been in, I don't know, 4 or 5 different times. And I appreciate each and every single one of them, Gary. It means the world to me. I don't know. See, I want to upgrade this armor, but I'm worried that, like, what if I find new armor later that I like better? Like, I find a new helmet.
Be safe out there.
Yeah, that's true.
Hello again, friend. Here you go. Keep your head up.
Yeah. Yeah, like, I don't really like the helmet. I kind of like the tires on the shoulder. Like, I think that's kind of cool. But yeah, I don't like the helmet. I think the helmet is dumb. Alright, now I have 2 of those Luminite crystals. I don't know what we use that for. Alright, I'll hang on to it for now. I was thinking about selling it, but... Okay, I sold the 2 that I had in my last playthrough, so I won't do that again. Let's do this. Yeah, I think so. The last checkpoint. Yeah, buddy. Yep, buddy, yeah, buddy. Here we go. Here we go. I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. So today's gonna be tough. I'm starting to feel it now. And then at some point, I'm gonna have to log off and go to my sister-in-law's for a couple hours and then come back and stream. Ay, ay, ay. Yeah. Oh, I hope not. I hope not. Yeah. Yeah, it's happened to the best of us. Oh, can we break these, anybody? No. Okay. Nice. Alright. Yeah, I did see that we got the rot or whatever. Yeah, I'm up on the thing next to you. Now I'm behind you over here. Just trying to stay out of each other's way. Well, I'm trying to stay out of your way. That's really what it is. Alright, here we go. Here we go. Oh shit, back up. Heal up. Use a dragon heart. Oh, they're throwing these grenades. It's like a boss shot. Oh shit. I didn't even see him right there. Nice. Oh. Yeah, somebody's throwing some sort of explodey caustic stuff. I do play too much Apex. Ah. Okay. Yeah, that's good. So you have that visual cue to let you know that like your shots are gonna hurt me. I like it. Yeah, which way do you want to go? Oh! Nice. Oh! Oh, this is the guy. Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's messing me up. Oh, it's so much nicer with two people. You gotta heal up too. But yeah, so you see how he like blocks her. Yeah, shoot him in the back. Nice. So nice. That was so difficult when I did that by myself. I died every time I faced him. Oh shit, I'm bleeding. Let me heal up. And I pop a bandage, stop the bleeding. Yeah, rather than something that is immediate. Yeah, because it's a quicker heal. Ooh, another Tome of Knowledge. More skill points. Oh, there's a bunch of them. Nice, well done. Yeah, yeah, when they get, oh, we got a big guy. Time's up, bitch. Close your eyes. Oh, we got a little guy.
He's down.
Oh. Yeah, that's my shit. Oh. Alright, there it goes. Yeah, I think I shot one of these things before, and I think that's what released the boss. So I don't know if you want to just try to walk past it and explore the rest of the dungeon before we come back. Make sure there's no like low-level guys that are gonna fuck us up. Yes, thank you. Yeah, I got 26 for now, so I'm okay. And plus my pistol and stuff. I have to get in the habit of using the melee more often. pistol rounds. And, oh shit. 26 shotgun shells. Oh, there's another one. Somebody's stealing something. Or maybe that was just something he threw that blew up late. I don't know. No, I'm okay. I got like 45. Okay. Oh, that motherfucker. Dear. Your dragon heart. Wait, that's a different thing. That's not the one we walked by earlier. Yeah. No, I'm good. I have a lot. Oh. Yeah, you can pick that up. Okay, this is... Alright, I don't remember. I don't know if that was this time or last time, but you did have to get me up at one point. Yep. Oh, nice shot. Yeah, it definitely is. You don't want no smoke, little gross bubbly monster.
Reloading.
Oh, you got a big guy.
Down.
Right. I mean, with the friendly fire, it's a bit difficult with, whoa, fuck. With, like, Because this class is like a melee. Oh yeah, I have 57. Now 76. I got 24 long gun bullets. Alright. But I forget what I was saying. Hold on. What?
When are you gonna do the cleaning? What is your plan?
All right, I'll do it now.
I'm calling for you. Do this over.
All right. So yeah, when we get out of here, I gotta paint balloons on a thing for her nephew. I painted like the base coats, and I just have to actually put the colors on it. So it's 4 balloons, so got to do that. We're gonna, I guess we'll go in there at like 7 or whatever. So yeah, we get out of this dungeon, and then I got to go. Oh, and this is. Yeah, this is, yeah, we go through here and then there's a checkpoint and then it's the boss fight. At least that's how the dungeon was, the one that I did earlier. Yeah, no, I don't know. Yeah, well, it depends. Depends on if he's at work or whatever. Oh, actually, let me use my dragon thing real quick. But yeah, so if you don't have one, after we get out of this checkpoint, you can just use it. We can go right back into it. Refill your dragon thing. Oh. Alright, so yeah, so this way now should be a boss fight and then this dungeon's done. Yep. Well, yep, they definitely kicked my ass my first time through. There's gonna be little guys too. Oh, watch your right.
Running low.
I don't know. I didn't want to use. I wanted to use the potion, not the dragon. That's the wrong button. Drinking some potion. I guess we're supposed to dodge, like, see that happening?
On it.
Oh, he's down here? I almost got out of that. Not quite. No. Dragon. Yeah, like right now. So there's that screech.
Everyone okay?
Oh, he's in here now? Dodge. How to get away from it fully. Oh, behind it. I don't have enough day. Oh no, it's gonna kill you. Oh, nice. Yeah, I don't have any more heals.
Watch my back!
To death. Alright, so I'm dead. Yeah, it's all you. Oh, watch yourself. Alright, yeah, give me 1 minute. I'm gonna go paint the balloons real quick, put the first coat on. I'll be back in like 2 minutes. My bad. My bad. My bad. My bad. My bad. My bitty bad. My bitty bitty bad. My bad. My bad, T-Dog. I'm back. Hello, hello, T-Dog, T-Dog. Your mic's muted still. Okay. Okay. Yeah, my bad. The paint wasn't laying down the way I expected it to. So. Yeah. Oh shit, I used all my potions. We should have gone back and bought some. I forgot about that. We'll see what happens. I gotta save stamina for that, and then I don't even have to dodge. I could just run in a straight line, and they don't keep up. Oh, he's right on me, Yosh. Just popped up right in front of me like a dick hole. Gotta run! Yeah. Gotta start running. I think we should do better being separated. Because like if we're together like we were, we may run like across each other's paths and then like I may dodge mine but I get hit by yours. Dead? Oh, you're down, okay. Yeah, that's definitely would help. Trying to save my stamina in case. Alright. Oh, what the? Oh. We're not friends. Back the fuck up. There we go.
Hang on!
Find this motherfucker.
And stay down!
Oh, run time. Oh, really? Oh, yes. Fucking shot me with a shit. Oh, I'm bleeding again now.
I'm in trouble.
Oh. Yeah, I just did it, but I just bandaged it. I don't have any more heals though.
Damn it!
Oh, I can't take another hit. Oh, no. Damn it. I mean, we got him past the halfway point. Definitely, if I would have had potions, it would have been. Gotta run. It's back. Let's get potions. Yeah, and this is only on I don't know why it's letting me do it. This is only the this is on normal. And when I first started playing yesterday, I was like, yeah, this is actually like kind of easy. Like I might up the difficulty level. I don't know, there might be, but I was thinking about upping it. I didn't know that at the time, but I was thinking like, I mean, like it was easy at the beginning yesterday. I was like, I might play this on like hard or whatever. And then I got to that dude with the 2 swords, and every time he blocked all the bullets until he got close and just like cut me, and I was bleeding, and oh man, it was so bad. Yeah, no.
Need Eating any scrounge? Till next time. How's it going? Later.
Yeah. Yeah, you just... Yeah. I was doing that. Yeah, it was like I was going, I kept dying, but I'm like, I'm just gonna keep going until I can get enough stuff.
Till next
And then
time.
I'll just keep going and earning. How many potions did you get? 4? I don't know. Yeah, I'll buy 4 and then I'll look at upgrades and stuff and see if I have.
Safest of travels.
So long. Anything you need? What do you need?
Let's see. I feel like the repeater is my go-to, so let me upgrade that. Let me upgrade the armor a bit. The helmet's cheap to upgrade.
Be safe out there.
Out of iron, that's why I can't upgrade it anymore.
What do you need?
I guess I'll never be able to get more bullets in the clip, probably, right? Yeah, maybe we'll unlock a weapon later on. Alright, I think I'm...
Be safe out there. Hello, traveler. What do you need?
I'm not in the mood for chat. What? Yeah? Better be worth my time.
So long.
I've got work to do.
Yep. Yeah, well, if we fail again, I don't have the money to buy. I can buy some more potions and stuff, but just a few. Like 3 more potions, and then I'm broke. So, it needs to work. Oh man, that sucks. That sucks to know. That's gonna be a no, I think. Yep. Yep, that's a big fucking no. Alright, we got this. Got me with the fucking bow and arrow shit. Oh, gotta run. Yeah. Trying to like walk and not use it until it's time to run. 66 damage on a headshot. Yeah. Where's he going? Oh, I see him. I don't do much damage at distance. I just did 10 on a headshot when he was across the room. He's over here by me. Nice. Oh, he's almost dead. Down there. Oh, gotta run. He's dead. There we go.
Eyes on. Might not be over.
Alright, so he's dead. Yeah, I didn't really worry about little guys that time. I just focused on him. I only killed them if they were like forcing me to. So very nice. I'm just looking to see if there's anything I can break, get more loot. That's all. See if there's anything that I didn't pick up while we were running from all that shit. Yeah, but it was very difficult. And it's probably why people like Dark Souls, because like it was super difficult, but like each time we learned something. It was like, okay, so that thing, we gotta run, we gotta save our stamina. So right. Just walking through it. Like,
Don't get turned around.
yeah, that's what turned me off about Black Desert, was it was just so easy. Alright, so here's the exit. And then if this dungeon's done, that's gonna be it for me for now, and then I need to grab something to eat, shower, get ready to go. Oh shit, I also gotta clip this and stuff. Well, I mean, you can play, you don't gotta not play this because I mean, okay. Okay. Search this. Okay. So that's. Oh, there's a crystal or something. So we'll go see what this does. And then I'll go. Oh, another checkpoint. Okay.
Now listen here, Stu. This is nothing personal, but I'm gonna eat you. I'm gonna eat you up because I made you. I put you in this world, I can take you out.
Okay. Yay! Dreamer's Mana. The earth was once walled off, not by guardians, but powerful, deeper, and stronger than the root. The dreamers we created, we thought them windows, they were doors. Okay.
Greetings, friend. Only the best.
Here we gotta go,
Keep your head up.
yeah, I'm gonna go talk to what's his name, or what's her name, and looking to get a weapon mod. And over here at, McCabe.
What now? Fine.
So,
Let's have a
ooh, okay, so rattleweed I can craft. Shoots a projectile that spawns a rattleweed upon impact with 225 health and draws aggro on all enemies within 10 meters, last 10 seconds. Okay. I guess I'll craft that. It's my only option.
Yeah, good. What now? Fine. Let's have a look.
Yeah. Wish I would have had that yesterday.
Anything you need?
We're done here?
Certainly.
Keep moving.
Be safe.
All right. So that's done. That's a good place to call it for now. So yeah, well, I'll message you when I'm on my way home and getting ready to get set up or whatever. All right. I'll talk to you then. Adios. Alright, and for those who stopped by, wasn't much, it was a surprise stream, something quick and easy, just to get some footage for my Insta post later. Yeah, I want to say thank you anyway for everybody that stopped by, I really appreciate it. I'll be back on tonight, 10-ish, playing the same game probably, maybe it's Free Play Friday, so I might do a little bit of Apex or something else. Maybe Borderlands or Overwatch with Kim. I don't know. But anyway, thank you very much for stopping by. Appreciate everybody who did come by and those who didn't.